Well, 2023 started off the same way for me that most of my New Year's do, with my neighbor banging on the door threatening to call the cops the next time I masturbate in his jacuzzi. Wait, that's not what I wrote in the script. Jim Eagle, have you been messing with the teleprompter? Are you sure? Alright, okay, let's take it again from the top then. Well, 2023 started off for me the same way my New Year's often do, waking up handcuffed to a hospital bed with 2 broken legs and a lacerated anus. All right, now I think I don't believe you. I'm 90% sure I didn't write either of those things. And you should know better than most how dangerous it is to mess with a host's teleprompter text. It's like tugging on Superman's cape, spitting in the wind, messing with Jim even, or putting super glue in Hunter Biden's crack pipe. All right, let's do this one last time. No funny business, or else I am going to fire your ass and replace you with Lorenzo, who I will hire away from Sasquatch. Well, 2023 started off the same way for me that most of my New Year's do, when I woke up to discover that I am even more ruggedly handsome and shockingly well endowed this year than I was last year. That's good. I like that one. I think I like it so much I'm willing to overlook the other two, in fact. And I take back that thing I said about Lorenzo. You know I would never replace you. But here's the thing about New Year's Day and Eve, the New Year's holiday, if you will, and it's not a thing that may have occurred to you, so it's possible I am about to blow your mind right now. Although, assuredly, not for the first time. But you'll notice, as you run down your mental inventory of federal holidays that you get the day off for, that New Year's is the only one left that has not been declared racist. There's only one holiday left in the entire calendar year where you can celebrate it exactly the same way you have always celebrated it, and no purple-haired 25-year-old dick nozzle is going to come up and try to lecture you about how you're upholding systems of white supremacy and contributing to the continuing oppression of historically marginalized communities. And in this way, New Year's has taken on sort of a totally different vibe from every other holiday. We just got through with Christmas, so you need no refresher course from yours truly on why Christmas is racist. Thanksgiving is racist for obvious reasons, because, hello, white Christian colonizers. Columbus Day, we know why that one is racist. Even though declaring that one racist might be the most hilarious one of all, since, as we have talked about before, the whole impetus for creating Columbus Day in the first place was as a signal of ethnic conciliation toward Italian Americans. But never let the actual historical record get in between you and your righteously indignant ragegasm, kids. In fact, leftist politicians have been slowly legislating Columbus Day out of existence for the last 2 or 3 years now, passing bills and resolutions declaring it Indigenous Peoples Day, which, if you want to talk about hilarious ironies, how come indigenous people can't just stake out their own holiday in some unoccupied part of the calendar? Why do they have to colonize Christopher Columbus's holiday like a bunch of marauding land thieves? Why does a holiday for indigenous people become more meaningful if it was taken away from a white man? Or a swarthy Neapolitan, as the case may be. Now, seriously, how are indigenous peoples honored in any way by the erasure of Columbus Day? If some young wokester is watching this and wants to attempt a thoughtful answer to the question, then my comment section, young man, is your comment section, so please do feel free to educate me. The 4th of July gets more racist every year, even though most of us want nothing more from that day than the opportunity to watch some brightly colored explosions in the sky while enjoying some nice German-style lager and some nice German-style frankfurters as we celebrate our deep and abiding love of America. But I think it's only a matter of time before the woke brigades come after the New Year's holiday just like they've come after all the rest, and not just because they want to stamp out all forms of guilt-free public frivolity, though that's part of it, make no mistake about that. But it's also because, when you think about it, the usual set of objections to Christmas, they apply equally to the New Year's holiday. After all, where did our calendar come from? Well, first, it came from Julius Caesar, speaking of Italian colonizers, who was never the Roman emperor, so please don't call him that. But the Julian calendar had a fatal flaw in it, which was the manner in which the leap year days were apportioned. It was just a tiny error each year, but 15 centuries down the line, the error multiplied sufficiently that Easter, which is supposed to happen around the spring equinox, had drifted all the way into the late summer. So in 1582, Pope Gregory III says, "I wanted to make a new calendar. Make it east to where it's supposed to be, and make it stay there forever. And so here in our present day, in which the secular always takes precedence over the religious, we are still marking the days and years on the Gregorian calendar, which was devised by people who wanted to more faithfully commemorate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I am telling you right now, it is only a matter of time before the woke brigades realize there is still only one holiday left that they have not tried to eradicate. So don't come to me and say I didn't give you fair warning. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where we hear more lamentations of our enemies' women by 9 a.m. than most armies do all day. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I am your eponymous host and humble servant. And if you came here tonight expecting to see the host launch into some hysterical, pearl-clutching tizzy over how awful and calamitous it is that the Republicans haven't selected a House Speaker after 2 days of trying, then I regret to say, dear viewer, you are going to leave these proceedings disappointed. Do I think it matters if the Speaker of the House is Kevin McCarthy or some other dickhead? No, I do not. Do I think there will be any negative consequence that redounds to any American if there is prolonged uncertainty over the identity of the next House Speaker? No, I do not. Do I think it's a bad thing if the House of Representatives is paralyzed to inaction for an extended period of time? No, I do not. In fact, if anything, that would be my preference. When the Congress isn't conducting any legislative business of which to speak, that's the only time we as American taxpayers can rest assured knowing, even if only for a few fleeting days, that they aren't recklessly spending our money like a bunch of goddamn drunken sailors and condemning our great-grandchildren to the poorhouse, which is what they usually do. So give me the prolonged uncertainty, I say. Hell, give me no House Speaker for the entire 2 years. I'd be fine with that. If nothing else, we know it would cause the national debt to finally go down, right? And it ain't gonna happen any other way, not as long as we persist in sticking with the same stupid two parties that we had in 1870. But I am not here to talk about the futility of ingrained generational tribalism tonight. There's at least a dozen other videos where I have done that at great length and painstaking detail. I would rather talk about what sort of instructive lessons can be learned from this spectacle that we're watching play out right now this week. And for starters, I think this is a great case study in the difference between Democrats and Republicans and how those differences contribute to creating a society in which the left basically wields hegemonic control over all of the institutions, even though the views of the average man on the street probably tend to hew much closer to the center or the center-right. In other words, why is it that so much power can be wielded and so inscrutably by the party whose views represent at best a crazy fringe minority of the public at large, while the party whose views tend to align more closely with the views of the average citizen seems to be relegated to permanent opposition status, and even when they're in the majority? I think that question has a simpler answer than you might think. And it's down to the fact that Democrats have a better understanding of what political parties actually are than Republicans do. Political parties are not vessels of ideology. They are vehicles for accruing and maintaining power. You'll hear conservatives asking out loud all the time questions like, don't the Democrats realize their views are the opposite of what they were 15 years ago? Don't the Democrats realize what incredible hypocrites they are? Do the Democrats really care so little for ideological coherence? And the answer to each one of those questions is exactly the same. Yes, and they don't give a damn, because you don't gain and hold political power through ideological coherence. You don't win elections by not being a hypocrite. You win elections by saying any damn thing you have to say and doing any damn thing you need to do to get across the finish line with more votes than the other guy. Democrats have always understood that better than Republicans do, and it gives them a built-in advantage, sometimes an unassailable one. That is how you can retain the Senate and nearly hold on to the House, despite having a president in the White House who is the leader in the clubhouse for the title of absolute worst president of all time, including the accidental ones. But there's a single tidy little acronym that I think exemplifies this misunderstanding on the conservative side, and it is RINO, RINO, Republican in name only. Now, in the opinion of this humble commentator, RINO can be a perfectly good and useful shorthand appellation. The trouble is that the people who use it, they tend to get it completely backward. For example, in the first 2 years of Trump's presidency, when he was getting no help whatsoever from the Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan and the Republican Senate Majority Leader Cocaine Mitch McConnell, the standard complaint for people on the right was to say that McConnell and Ryan, well, they're a couple of dirty, filthy rhinos. And then the annoying guy with the sneaking taste for pedantry comes along and says, I'm sorry, pardon me, but who is the rhino here exactly? Because it's difficult to argue when you get down to thinking about the actual merits that Donald Trump represents the true mainstream of the Republican Party, while Ryan and McConnell are the interlopers. I've made this argument in probably 100 different comment threads in a dozen different places, and I always close with, from where I am sitting, if anybody is a rhino here, it's Trump. And invariably, people start downvoting the comment into oblivion because they think I am insulting Trump when actually I am paying him a high compliment. And the people who are doing the downvoting, there's no mystery in why they're doing it, because they think Republican and conservative are synonyms, but they aren't. They never have been. Kevin McCarthy is a Republican. Jim Jordan is a conservative. Willard Romney is a Republican. Rand Paul is a conservative. See, when I call somebody a rhino, that's a term of endearment, an honorific even, but people are usually so busy with their knee-jerk outrage reaction that it's well nigh impossible trying to explain that. But if they would just take a moment to listen, there is nothing complicated about it. Barry Goldwater was a conservative. Ronald Reagan was a conservative. Donald Trump, since he became a political figure, for the most part, has been a conservative. But when I hear Republican apologists misguidingly attempting to argue that Abraham Lincoln was a conservative, well, there's nothing to do at that point but just facepalm good and hard, because that person is never going to get it. You could spend hours or days trying to explain to that guy that in the context of U.S. politics in the late 1850s, there was nothing more radically liberal than a single-issue pressure group that has no agenda of which to speak except the complete, total, and immediate abolition of involuntary human servitude, which is exactly what the Republican Party was on the day when former Representative Abraham Lincoln, toiling in obscurity in some Springfield, Illinois law firm, having left politics behind some years earlier in utter disillusionment at the futility of all the partisan bullshit in Washington, decided to quit being a Whig and give these crazy new abolitionists their party a try. We've just been nibbling around the edges of this whole slavery thing, trying to strike a balance that can never be struck, and here's this new party made up of people who want to stop beating around the bush and actually confront directly the monstrous moral evil that has stained the project of American liberty from the word go. So maybe I will give politics another chance, says Lincoln. Here is a party that wants to talk about the only issue that really matters. That's the kind of party that I can devote my energies to. So I think I will run for the Senate as a Republican in 1858. Which is to say, circling back to the point, like Lady Ginger McFirebush of Alabaster Farms, whom I do miss a great deal. It's never been the same with Baghdad buckwheat, frankly. Stop saying Abraham Lincoln was a conservative. The definitions of conservative and liberal, they change, sometimes radically, with each succeeding generation. When you look at the 30,000-foot historical view, you see an even starker relief that party labels, they are only tangentially connected and sometimes not connected at all to the prevailing concepts of left and right ideology. And there is no argument more stupid, more pointless, more self-defeating than the argument that seeks to pluck some well-respected personage out of the pages of history and use him as a sock puppet and say, if this guy was here with us today, well, he would so obviously be on my side, you guys. So how do we categorize that fallacy? Do we call it a spurious appeal to the authority of a corpse? I'm not setting up a Joe Biden joke there, though I probably should have. I don't know why you'd think such a thing, though. But I am glad the president did get one shout-out here in the first episode of the new year, because it just wouldn't be the same without him, frankly. When you do what I do, you wind up leaning on the old guy pretty hard. Sometimes you sit down, it's time to start writing that script for tonight. There's nothing in your head, the words won't come, and there is always that reliable fallback of, well, let's see what Joe Biden was up to today. And then, like manna from the heavens, 45 seconds later, the episode is writing itself. Joe Biden is like comedy methamphetamine, ladies and gentlemen, and I guess it's only fitting that we should give a brief shout-out to the rest of the all-stars in the Joe Biden administration, the Roach Motel presidency, if you will, where everybody checks in but nobody ever gets fired, no matter how disastrously inept their performance. Vice President Kamala Harris, come on down and give us some of that sweet, sweet cackle, sweetheart. Admiral Danglin Dick Levine, America's second greatest heroine of the high seas, you come down too. And remember, each time you hack off the testicles of a healthy young boy, an angel gets his wings. Secretary Mayor Pete Buttigieg, you come on down too, you big lug. Oh, bring Chasen along. Bring the twins too, god damn it. Can you give us a live chest feeding demonstration, or do your man boobs get stage fright? But don't feel bad if they do, because we run a chest-feeding friendly operation around here at Castle Curmudgeon. We've got a dedicated nursing room here in the back. Don't feel bad if you need to stay in there for a good 4 or 5 months. We got everything covered at the office with the choo-choo trains and everything. Have I forgotten anybody? Oh, I guess there is Janet Yellen, but that requires either a Hobbit joke or a nursing home joke, and I feel like it's too late in the episode to attempt either one of those. So you will all just have to use your imagination. In the meantime, thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope your week, your month, and indeed your year are off to an agreeable and reasonably edifying start. And if not, there is no place to go but up, right? I will see you Friday. Do not comply. Get off my lawn!